Hey there, y'all. How y'all today? Mulletteer here, reaching out to you from sunny Suffolk, Virginia, though we got a little bit of storm on the way there over top of us. Looking like it may be raining coming here shortly. But anyway, I wanted to reach out. Mulletteer don't talk out like this too often. But hey, anyway, it's story time with your favorite Skuncle, the Mulletteer. Lord of mercy, not a great one to start off on, you know. Some days better than others. Last couple been pretty rough, nationally wise, all the news going on, people all up in arms, all about which ways. A lot going on. But then, of course, then you're back into the day. And, of course, today being 9/11/2025, that's marking 24 years since the events in New York and Alexandria, Virginia, and up in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. There, most people now, heck, Mulletteer got an 11-year-old daughter. I got to have her write a book report about it because she just a legend to her, you know, and even people that remember living through it. There, right around it, dealing with it after and before. A lot of folks Mulletteer knows are in their youth still, or much younger. They were children during that point in time, you know. But anyway, the Mulletteer gonna tell a little adult story here anyhow, from his perspective. Mulletteer had gone and moved up to that part of the nation is right at the end of 2000. The company Mulletteer worked with had collapsed down in Virginia Beach, and telecom folk was scrambling all over the place trying to find jobs. Mulletteer was part of a sales team and met up with a cat that he worked with at the beach. Things seemed all right. We got a gig to go straight up to work up in Edison, New Jersey. Good work, man. These folks paid the Mulletteer some buku money just to move up there as a sales engineer. Don't exactly know full on. We was selling telecom products. Mulletteer would go out there and help engineers interface between business and engineering talk, and quite frankly, a lot of times it was sitting around having meetings about meetings we was going to have type of thing, like many jobs were back there in that tech boom right before the bubble burst. But anywho, Mulletteer had gone back up there trying to live the high life. He'd been sober about 3.5 years at that point, pushing 4, and got out there away from his own and started living the life. Some of the folks to Mulletteer were running with were into Mulletteer had already had his problems with drinking and things like that, but got up that way and started running with the crowd and had some of that money. Mulletteer started doing some white line, ring around the nosy fever type thing, and really got big, especially after being white knuckle sobriety for close to 3.5 years, 4 years at that point. When the Mulletteer went off, he went off. Let's just say the Mulletteer did not fall off the wagon. The Mulletteer dove off to some bitch and let it back over him 2 or 3 times. When Mulletteer went down, he went down hard. Booze started flowing real quick. Then, of course, started doing the other stuff, that old Peruvian, and that was all in the summer lead up about 24 years ago. And then by that point, the job won't go hold. Mulletteer was living in a fine trailer park establishment in one of the nicer parts of New Jersey. Fine place. Lots of you carried a pistol underneath your pillow there, and I usually kept one in the shower. But anywho, Mulletteer was trying to get away from that. It just started kind of thinking again, trying to find real work, trying to get some suit and tie stuff. Mulletteer had been waiting tables and bartending at that point, gotten his life all piddled apart. Mulletteer was standing there that morning, ironing a shirt. I was supposed to catch a train right around the 9:30, 10 o'clock mark up in New Brunswick, New Jersey. We was going to roll up into the Midtown because by about, I think it was around noon, 1 o'clock, right around lunchtime, Mulletteer had a meeting with a headhunter that had a possibility of a job up in Manhattan at that point. And now back this up a little bit, about 3 months prior, around mid-July of 2001, Mulletteer had left the telecom company and was looking for other types of work. Been out there waiting tables and doing whatnot and trying to make ends meet, and met this real nice sales fella, that Mr. Ryan, that introduced me to some of his people that wanted me to come on and be like a sales not a manager, but kind of like a coordinator, a back office type person, take some phone calls, do some paperwork, meet some folks type thing. Sounded like a great little job. Problem was it didn't pay a lot, and it would have been in 2 World Trade, I think around the 6th or 8th floor, one of the lower floors. But unfortunately at the time, and like I said, this was around late July of 2001, it wasn't in the cards because I just couldn't afford the money to take the train every day from where I was living. I thanked the guy for the opportunity, and then flash forward a few months later, and so here we are. As far as I know, after the death toll and the counts and the names read, Mr. Ryan was one of the names up in there. I cannot for the life of me still remember the name of the company, Star something. Some of the cats in the bar I worked with, one of the fellows in particular, his stepdad was in the same floor where the first plane hit. Probably never saw nothing, knew anything about whatnot, because that was how we all found out, was when that first one went through that side of that building. But anyway, the bar to Mulletteer hung in. A couple other folks hung out in this pub called the North Brunswick Pub. It was up in North Brunswick, New Jersey, up on Highway 27, if I remember right. But anyway, a lot of police used to hang out around in there, and during that time, especially right after itself 9/11, but then the following weeks, because you got to remember the Yankees was in the World Series that year, so there was a lot of just sentiment was over the moon in that New York field. And for that whole time period after that, Mulletteer was waiting and bartending and trying to find other work, and quite honestly, looking at the bullet he probably dodged and never knew it, down there, turning that opportunity for a job down, because even if the Mulletteer had been there, Mulletteer knows his own, knows how his guts are. Mulletteer was volunteer firefighter, volunteer rescue squad personnel back as a teenager. Mulletteer's a dadgum Eagle Scout, for crying out loud. That protector and rescue spirit, let's say, is within him, and I can guarantee you if the building had been on fire and the Mulletteer had even gotten out, he'd have probably been down there helping folks, so probably know where that would have gone. So that's always weighed on his mind a bit, or like to think that way anyhow, as all of us would, to step up and be the hero, or to be the person to help when the time's necessary. Like to think that. But anyhow, all them things going on, and watching one of the cats the Mulletteer run with, this cat was part of a pipe and drum corps for one of the local tri-state areas up there on their state police. And this fella had done, in the course of, I want to say 35 days after 9/11, or the weeks after that, in 35 days, this guy had done something like 60, pushing 70 funerals, being part of the pipe and drum corps for fire, rescue, first response personnel from the New York area, all the different departments and jurisdictions, folks that had been killed during the line of duty. And just remembering this guy stumbling in nightly, just no emotion. The man was a hollow shell, and the few friends that Mulletteer was running with at the time that could, lend this guy a hand, give him the best talking to we could, just seeing that the depth of despair in this man. This man had been to, at one point, I want to remember, he had done something like 5 funerals within a day or two, and 3 of which were either relatives, whether some vague cousin or some very good friend, son, daughter, cousin type thing. I mean, these were people all in a small-knit community, even as big as law enforcement is and all the different departments up there. It's still a very small community, a well-known, well-knit. Same with the fire department up there. But, living that from my side, during that time period, luckily, the Mulletteer didn't fully have his act together. He was still, some of them stories later, Mulletteer got sober again later on, but this was in some of his heyday and trying to get himself straight, that little up and down game going on in his life. It had to get worse before it gets better, like they say. But living through that time and seeing it, that night, probably right about 24 hours ago right now, sun was going down. It was kind of like it is, a little bit chilly as I remember it. Mulletteer had a friend named Alan that had a souped up Firebird, black one, T-top, newer model, like, 90s. And we went up to Jersey Turnpike to see what we could see, because there's certain areas once you get up there and then up to the Garden State, you get up in that area, you can see over Ellis Island, and there's a little bit of glimpses here and there of the city. So we was going to try to see how far we could go, and never forget it, man. All you could see is you got off on that the turnpike around exit 10 or exit 11, right up there past where 287 crosses. It was just rows of trucks parked. It was like canyons, because all them trucks had been shut down, all them bridges had been stopped, and it's just like canyons going down that roadway, man. And we're right in the middle of like 6 lanes of traffic. Ain't nobody around. There's trucks parked everywhere, and maybe every now and then, man, we're doing 70, 80, cruising in the middle lane with barely nobody within 200, 300, 400 yards of you, maybe one car ahead. Then every now and then, one of them troopers or some FBI or some type of somebody with blues or reds would come flying, screaming by, doing 100, 120 miles an hour, maybe a train of them heading towards town, something like that. I mean, just chaos watching it. But never forget sitting there and going down and riding with this cat. And we didn't have cell phone cameras, weren't really as much of a thing. All I had was a disposable, and sadly the few prints I had Mulletteer had have been lost to time now. But we had gone out on the I want to say it was the Garden State, and there's this one little bend area where you can look through the trees as long as there's not a lot of leaves, and you can see right past the Statue of Liberty, where you expecting to see them towers. Seen them towers, you know, hundreds of times. Mulletteer had been down there, touch and feel them, smell them, be able to see them. They were just one of them things you see every day, like the sun, man. And then you just look out through that little copse trees past Lady Liberty there, and there's just nothing but smoke. And you know, you just Mulletteer's heart ain't never felt like that. Mulletteer's had family members pass, friends, pets, things that meant, you know, but that was the most unique experience, feeling that, just standing there, seeing what it done. And of course, this was in the beginning, and not even gonna get into politics, right, wrong, otherwise. Everybody obfuscates everything. All the Mulletteer knows is a place he could have worked one time, place a few people he vaguely knew, some names and people he had done business with on phones. Didn't come home from that place. Over 3,000 people, or somewhere around that. Can't remember the exact number now. Mulletteer's brain ain't where it used to be. But close to 3,000 people dead. That's all the Mulletteer see, for no reason. Other than, well, anyhow, folks. Mulletteer don't get that off his chest too often. Don't like talking about them stories. But the other sides of it, too, is because of that, taught some internal lessons, too, on the Mulletteer. One of the few times I can say to seeing as that many people come together, seem to agree on anything outside of maybe if it's hot or cold, and heck, people don't seem to be able to agree on that half the time. But it was good to see some unity that came about, even if it was for a short while, right, wrong, or indifferent. But anyway, well, y'all have a great rest of your day. Don't want to be a drag down. Hope everything's going all right in your neck of the world is where you're hanging out. And of course, if nobody else told y'all today, always remember, Mulletteer loves you. Take care out there. We talk to you soon.